It's the Big 550 KTRS. I am Paul Harris. Kelly Jackson is here with me. I haven't seen a story grip the Twitter sphere as the Cecil the Lion story did yesterday. Cecil the Lion was a well-known lion in Zimbabwe who was taken down in a hunt in early July by an American dentist by the name of Dr. Walter Palmer. Dr. Palmer had apparently paid something like $55,000 for a big game permit and traveled from his hometown of Minneapolis to Africa to kill this lion. Palmer is a guy who has done this many, many times with other animals, but has gotten in trouble for it before. Back in 2008, he pleaded guilty to making false statements to the Fish and Wildlife Service about a black bear he shot and killed in Wisconsin. He killed it outside an authorized hunting zone and then dragged it into the authorized hunting zone and then lied about it. So it was the cover-up that got him as well as the crime. Now he's in trouble for killing this lion in Zimbabwe who was beloved by the locals there. Here to share some insight into this is anthropologist Natalia Reagan. Hi, Natalia. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me on this morning.
Thank you for joining us via Skype. So why was Cecil the Lion so beloved in Zimbabwe?
Well, he was very charismatic, very habituated as far as being accustomed to humans. And so he would oftentimes be photographed or videotaped coming near cars, not seeming frightened by humans, and which makes it even all the more tragic that he was lured away. And of course, because he was habituated to human presence, most likely wasn't as afraid as he should be of Walter Palmer and his guides. So that there is a reason why he probably was easily lured away, but also what made him so charismatic. And he was gorgeous. If you look at photos and video, he just seemed really at ease with himself. He had a beautiful black mane, was just well loved and admired.
He was in a preserve or a protected area and lured away by, from what I hear, they put some meat or a dead animal on the back of a truck and kind of made Cecil feel like that could be his lunch if he followed the vehicle into an unprotected area, right?
Exactly. And once he was lured away, he was then shot with a crossbow. And this is where I, as somebody who works in conservation, has to question at what point is trophy hunting animal cruelty, because he was shot and then was not killed. And for 40 hours, this poor lion suffered. If this happened to anybody's cat or dog, you bet they would be up in arms, and that person, whoever shot that cat or dog, would be charged with animal cruelty and serve a very stiff penalty. Cecil the Lion, or Cecil actually, that's what they usually call him, Cecil the Lion, had to suffer for 40 hours until he was ultimately shot, skinned, and beheaded. And at that point, at which point I am curious to when they realized he had a radio collar on, or if they even knew it was Cecil to begin with, because that right there also could be very incriminating.
I guess there comes a point also where sport game hunting, when will this be outlawed?
I'm hoping Cecil didn't die in vain. That again, we're making an example of Walter Palmer. Obviously he's going to suffer tremendously. His practice is already suffering. If you've seen the Yelp reviews, yep. I understand we need to vilify somebody, but I don't think we need to completely crucify him. But at least let him be an example of what not to become. But let Cecil be, unfortunately, a martyr. And hopefully this will change policy, because, actually, when they thought that the poacher had been Spanish, legislators and politicians in Europe, including Catherine Bearder, actually started pushing for legislation to end the import of trophy hunts to Europe. So just as we found out yesterday that the actual poacher was American, the hunter of Cecil, we're actually seeing a push for ending the import of trophy hunts into America, at least of lions, because right now lions are considered vulnerable on the IUCN Red List. They're not considered endangered at this point, but there's a big push to have the United States Fish, Game, and Wildlife Organization basically shut down the ability to import any sort of lion trophies.
Natalia, let me read to you what Dr. Palmer has said in a statement today. He says, I was in Zimbabwe in early July on a bow hunting trip for big game. I hired several professional guides and they secured all the proper permits. To my knowledge, everything about this trip was legal and properly handled and conducted. I had no idea that the lion I took was a known local favorite, was collared and part of a study until the end of the hunt. I relied on the expertise of my local professional guides to ensure a legal hunt. I've not been contacted by authorities in Zimbabwe or in the U.S. about this situation, but I will assist them in any inquiries they may have. Again, I deeply regret that my pursuit of an activity I love and practice responsibly and legally resulted in the taking of this lion. What would you say to Dr. Palmer after that?
Well, again, this is where we get into the ethical argument. He seems to be apologizing for killing a famous lion, not for killing a lion, a famous lion. And again, this is where we bring in the whole idea of zoosadism, which is the animal cruelty, deriving pleasure from hurting animals. And this actually made me think of, I don't know if anyone has seen Little Shop of Horrors lately, but that dentist who, in the beginning of his song, talks about shooting puppies with a BB gun. Mm-hmm. And not that I've had wonderful dentists, but this made me think of that. This man seems to not only... Well, he's apologizing for killing a famous lion. It's like if a whaler had killed Shamu and said, oh, sorry, I didn't know it was Shamu, but if it was another whale, it's cool. But just the idea that there's an intrinsic value to life, that humans have this interesting way of putting a dollar amount on life, and that because, Cecil brought in income for the tourist organizations in Zimbabwe, that he meant more. That if he killed Jericho, he would maybe not. Jericho would be Cecil's eventual successor. That would probably take over his pride. But if he killed Jericho, he wouldn't be apologizing as much. So again, there's this idea that humans like to smack a dollar sign or amount on how worthy a species is for us to conserve. Just based on what it can maybe bring in revenue-wise.
You mentioned Cecil's pride there. Let me just stop you for a second on that, because I'm curious, what happens when the father figure of a pride is killed and taken away? What happens to the cubs and the rest of the pride?
Well, unfortunately, it has been documented on multiple occasions that when a new male is introduced to the pride and takes over, whether by force or because one has died, they kill the cubs young enough to be easily killed, so the females go back into estrus and are able to mate again. This doesn't always happen. However, that's something that should be taken in consideration when people are paying to $50,000 to kill a lion, that this is a possibility, that you might not just be responsible for the death of one lion, but multiple. And at this point in time, it is July, which is usually breeding season. So you're probably going to have younger cubs there that might be targeted by Jericho, who's coming in. And he's just doing what he's doing. He's not, you can't put a sort of an ethical idea on what, whether him killing cubs is a bad thing or not. It's just nature being nature. And hopefully that won't be the case. But
you were saying,
Walter Palmer,
that lions are not endangered as of now, but I know there are many factors into reasons why they do become endangered animals, and one of them being through hunting. So
yes.
If we have more people like, this dentist doing that, they will eventually become endangered.
Yes, hunting and habitat loss right now are the biggest threats to lion populations, which have actually dropped 60% in the past 30 years. They're down to about 32,000 in numbers. And one of the things you're seeing are these preserves, of course, where Cecil had lived, but also there are these sort of canned lion preserves where they actually breed lions to be killed, which are also seen as being incredibly cruel because the lions are, like Cecil, very habituated to humans and have actually a perimeter so they can't escape. And it's a kind of an easy hunt for these hunters. So along with hunting, habitat loss, and, other stressors, lions are faced with some pretty, big hurdles.
What's going to happen to Dr. Palmer, and what happens to the two hunter-poacher guides in Zimbabwe?
Well, it looks like I was checking the news this morning. It looks like the two guides actually are in court today. I don't know what's going to happen to Walter Palmer. I don't know if they're going to extradite him or if the United States can actually prosecute him. I know that they were looking into that. Let's face it, that man's life is pretty ruined right now. There is, ironically enough, there's going to be a hunt for Walter Palmer now. Just like he hunted Cecil, animal rights activists are pretty upset.
Yep.
And not to say that they're going to cause physical harm to him, but as far as his ability to make a living, that might be critically endangered.
Well, I wonder how some of his patients would feel if they did not know that he was engaged in this sort of stuff, although I'm also guessing that if you went into his office in Minneapolis, there's probably a head or two on the wall and a story he's happy to tell about each of them.
I bet there is. And the thing is, I just came back from the Midwest, and there's a different feeling in the Midwest about hunting. And there's a difference between hunting elk and, even bear. People do eat bear, and I'm not a big fan of this kind of hunting, big game hunting. But, if they're going to use all the elements of the animal and eat it, it's a little bit different. But when it comes to just killing, again, for sport, I have to question, are you a sadist?
Yeah.
Are you enjoying drilling me?
It makes you wonder, hunting turkey, hunting deer, we have those legal here in Missouri, of course. Hunting lion just for trophies seems like something completely different to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I don't know if you wanted me to mention get out the orangutan that was recently killed as well. Well, no, I just another issue of I find this story very sad, and it kind of got sort of brushed under the carpet and got trumped by Cecil. But Goodell, an orangutan that lived in Borneo, was just succumbed to injuries that he sustained from a plantation worker. And orangutans are heavily endangered, and this particular one was living in Borneo and was on a plantation and was attacked by a worker. The worker said that it was chasing him, but the wounds to this orangutan were on its back, which seems strange for something that is being chased to get to its back. But it has succumbed to its wounds, and it's another example of humans, which are great apes. We are first and foremost great apes. As I joke, some are greater than others. Killing other great apes. And at what point is it, again, animal abuse or even murder? And this man has actually been put in jail for a year. And they're looking actually to enforce a stronger sentence because this orangutan has since died. And again, I talk to a lot of people, and I hear a lot of hunters or even those that come up against this idea that killing an animal is the same as killing a human. But it's just the idea of empathy and understanding and compassion that I feel like humans are lacking. And even yesterday with, as you said, the Twitter sphere going crazy, I wish that the Twitter sphere would go crazy over other very important social issues like racialized violence and gun control, because I feel like if we've almost grown immune to it. And because Cecil was this sort of novelty in our Twitter sphere and our feed, we paid more attention to it. So I just wish that there would be a greater understanding and empathy within our species.
Yeah, I agree with you. Natalia, it's a pleasure talking to you. I met Natalia about a week and a half ago in Las Vegas at the Amazing meeting. She was the kickoff speaker and gave a wonderful speech on people who claim that they're out there looking for Bigfoot. And I will recommend to you her website, NataliaReagan.com, particularly if you're thinking about getting a pet monkey. Watch Natalia's video on that. It is fantastic. And I also know that you were here in St. Louis last week working with some people at Wash U, and I hope that next time you're in town we can get together and talk some more.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on.
Anthropologist Natalia Reagan joining us via Skype today here on the Big 550 KT.